In today's video, we are diving into LiveKit's powerful browser-based voice orchestration layer, Agent Builder. This builder allows us to prototype and deploy fully functional voice AI right from our browser, similar to platforms like ElevenLabs and VAPI. No code, no setup, and no servers. So if you're a developer that is looking to move across to something like LiveKit for more control over your voice agents, but don't necessarily have the software expertise to jump straight into LiveKit's SDK, this video is for you. And in today's video, I'll walk through step by step on how to build your very first voice agent, deploy it to a phone number, and explore what is possible beyond LiveKit's Agent Builder. Let's jump straight into it. So just a week or so ago, the Agent Builder was released, and essentially what this is a web-based builder when it comes to voice agents and LiveKit, where we can simply prototype and build simple voice agents through a browser. So this is how VAPI and ElevenLabs and Retell and other orchestration platforms work. Whereas LiveKit is very much SDK based. So in previous tutorials, we've built out a code base and deployed our agent using LiveKit Cloud. Now, Agent Builder is different in that we can just build it directly on a browser, define our system prompt, connect any tools, buy a number, and deploy directly in browser. So we're not having to build out a code base and then deploy it manually. This allows us to quite simply deploy a simple agent using LiveKit Cloud. Now, it includes a bunch of different features that we won't really get into on this page, but we will when we build it out ourselves. But what's important to note is we can also add actions, so tools within the browser. So we're able to extend our agent's functionality with HTTP tools, which can call external APIs and services. So we could connect this to N8N, which we will do in this video, which is quite cool. We can have variables and metadata, secrets, and some other features. So essentially here, being able to create a nice little voice agent quite simply without having to go into a code base while still leveraging LiveKit as a framework. So if you like the control and customizability when it comes to using LiveKit to build voice agents, this is going to be for you. Now, of course, at any time, we can convert our agent to code by choosing a download code button in the top right-hand corner, which we'll showcase in just a second. It's also important, and I haven't seen this said online, is the agent builder is not really intended to replace the LiveKit agents SDK, but instead to make it easier just to get started with voice agents on LiveKit, and for them to be extended later with custom code after you've deployed this proof of concept voice agents. So there's some list of features that aren't supported by this agent builder, which is workflows. Those include handoffs and tasks, virtual avatars, vision, real-time models, and model plugins, as well as tests. So enough talking about the release notes. Let's just jump straight into the meat and bones here. Over on cloud.livekit.io, we have our LiveKit Cloud panels. So this includes everything from overview, session, agents, which we're going to go into, telephony deployments, including calls, dispatch rules, phone numbers, which is a new feature, and we'll get into SIP trunks, egress, ingress when it comes to data, as well as sandbox settings and billing. So all the general stuff that we've seen before and in previous videos I've made over on LiveKit. Now, if you click into agents, we have a new, and get ready, build agent in browser section. So here we're able to prototype agent IDs through prompts. So we're going to go ahead and check this out today. A really cool feature that allows us to build out these simple voice agents quite quickly, not having to jump into a code base and mess around with all of that. So you'll see here, we have a very basic interface when it comes to orchestration pertaining to voice AI. So if you're familiar with ElevenLabs, VAPI, Retell, a lot of the UI or user interface when it comes to constructing a voice agent is the same. And you can think of it in this three-core stack. So we have the text-to-speech, the LLM, and our speech-to-text models all sort of merged into one. And that is a voice agent. So here, our instructions pane really pertains to the model, so our LLM model or system prompt. And it is here where we can define how this agent's meant to operate, including some output rules, how the conversation goes, tools that are connected to this, and some guardrails. Now, the next pane is models and voice. So this is our stack when it comes to voice AI. So we can choose our text-to-speech model, whether that's Cartesia, ElevenLabs, Rhyme, InWorld, they offer here, as well as our voice model when it comes to speech synthesis, and a bunch to choose from here. And we can switch over to ElevenLabs and choose a bunch there. And then we have our LLM model. So what is actually doing the inferencing here, and how does this agent behave? And then, of course, our speech to text models. So how, or what rather, model should be handling transcription. And I would recommend using Deepgram Nova 3 here. So let's just configure some of these models here. I might leave the speech synthesis model as ElevenLabs, as it's quite good. And we'll choose perhaps, let's do Jessica. And then the LLM model, I'm going to change to Gemini Flash, something a bit faster. So we can customize our stack here in terms of model. So this is one of the good things about LiveKit is it's truly agnostic when it comes to the models and providers associated with our three core building blocks when it comes to voice AI, text to speech, LLM, and speech to text, which is rather cool here. And we can choose from any of these models that LiveKit offer on their inferencing. Now, of course, with this web-based builder, we are only limited to these four models when it comes to, our text to speech, our LLM, speech to text. When you use the SDK, you'll have access to whatever you want there. Now, the next pane here is actions. So you can think of this as tools. And we're going to build out an agent today, but I'm going to run through this quickly. And here we can define web requests to enable our agent to interact with other external software and services. And it's quite easy to create a tool where we can add an HTTP tool name, tool description, the method, the URL, parameters, and headers. And then we can add that tool and then define that in our instructions, and bang, our agent's able to connect to something like a calendar, which we're going to do in just a second. But before we do that, we want to check out the advanced pane here, where we can add some custom metadata, some secrets, and some telephony. So here, what we'll do later is connect our agent to a phone number, which is a new feature over here in LiveKit Cloud. So if you see before, we had phone numbers here, which is new. And now we can purchase local US numbers for inbound calls. Now, if you want to mess around with outbound calls or something like that, I do have a previous video where we use SIP-Trunk as a method, or perhaps you don't want to use Twilio, which is what they use here for these inbound numbers. Perhaps you want to use an external provider like Telnex, and I went through that in my last LiveKit video. Or if you want a bit more granular insight, go ahead and check out my community where we go into stuff like this all the time. So here we could buy a number from the US and associate that to our LiveKit agent. So what I might do now is actually buy one of these. So I'll confirm this purchase and go ahead and buy a localized US number. You'll see purchase complete here, and we can assign our new number with dispatch rules that exist, or we can create our own. And we'll go into that in just a moment. But the main thing here is we have a phone number in just 2 clicks, which is pretty cool. Now, that was very easy to go ahead and get our hands on a number, and we can go ahead and assign that to our agent in just a moment. But first, we want an agent with some utility to deploy this to an inbound phone number, all right? So let's jump back over to our agents. And this is the one that we had just created. And we're going to go and edit in Builder. And let's take a look at our instructions. So how do we define our agent's personality, tone, and behavior guideline? So here we can learn more and get to know how LiveKit expects its prompts to be written. So they've provided us with a prompting guide here, which is quite useful when it comes to knowing exactly how you should instruct your prompt or your agent in the format that LiveKit works best with. So here we can see we should give our agent an identity. We should define some output formatting rules. So you can see here, we should define what tools we have. We should define some goals. We should add some guardrails and some user information if applicable. And here we have a complete example on what that actually looks like. So here, output rules, conversation flow, tools, and guardrails. So for today, we're going to remove this system prompt and build out our own, following the conventions in our prompting guide, right? The only things that are going to remain static are going to be our output rules. So we could probably copy these and paste them back in, my bad, as well as the guardrails. These are going to remain static from agent to agent. Doesn't really matter. Now, we'll also have our identity. So you are an X agent, as well as our goal is going to be a section, and then conversation flow, and we'll do like an example of a conversation. And then tools is generally the section that we're going to map out now. Okay, so for our identity, we can say something like the following: you are Jonas's concierge assistant. Your only job is to greet Jonas, understand what event time frame they want, blah blah blah. The goal here is then going to be acting as a concierge that retrieves and explains my schedule events and so forth. Use get_cal to retrieve the relevant event data and summarize it clearly. So here we're now defining a tool name that we're going to add in just a moment, so it knows exactly how to retrieve event or scheduling related material. Next, we'll want to define our conversational flow. So giving an example of what a conversation looks like when it comes to our personal concierge agent. So this is going to be very, very brief, I think. And what we can say is something like the following. What do I have on at the moment? Let me check schedule for this afternoon, where we use this tool. And then we'll say, okay, we have XYZ this afternoon. And then of course, obviously, we know our tool that is connected to this agent, which is quite clearly our getCal tool, where we retrieve calendar events, availability windows, or upcoming appointments. Never guess what's on the calendar. Always use the tool to retrieve real information. Blah, blah, blah. Very good. We've built out an entire prompt, and you can see just how easy that was within a matter of minutes to build out our MVP agent here. Now we can use a welcome message defined by our model. So we can say, greet the user and offer your assistance. We can check this to allow users to interrupt the greeting, or uncheck it to make this an uninterruptible greeting. Or we can turn off this first message entirely, where the user has to say something and then our agent will respond. But because this is an inbound agent, it doesn't really make sense to allow the user to say something first. We want to greet them with a message. Now we can save our changes up here to ensure nothing gets missed, and then move on to our models and voice. Some of the settings didn't change here, so we can use ElevenLabs, a bit more realistic in my opinion. We use Jessica, and our model we can leave as is, and then our transcriber will change back to Nova 3. Save changes on that one again. And now the cool thing is going to be our actions. So this is our tools. We're going to add an HTTP tool, and we know our tool name is getCal. We're going to say use this tool to retrieve information on the calendar. And we're going to send some data externally, where we can open up a new workflow over in N8N. And we can add a webhook, production, method, post. And then we're going to respond right with respond to webhook node, and we'll have to add that webhook respond to webhook. we'll leave as is and make sure this workflow is running. And we'll copy our production URL there, head back to LiveKit and paste that in like so. And then we're going to add a parameter, which is going to be request, the user's requested item, the user's request. We'll leave the same. And then we're going to add the tool, right? We're going to save changes, and then we're going to start a call. Let's see what this sounds like. So I'll put my face back over here, and we'll start a call.
Hello, Jonas. How can I assist you with your schedule today?
Hey, just wanted to check what I had on for later today.
Later today, Jonas has a strategy call scheduled at 3.
Okay, so called that tool. It's not actually connected to a calendar, which we're going to do now. The main thing was sending that parameter request over to our and workflow to be able to work with. So if I go to executions here, and the latest execution we had, if I just jump back here, copy to editor, you'll see here, we had events today after 12 p.m. So we said this afternoon, but the main thing here is this request body parameter, which now we could probably plug into an AI agent, right? So we could set up an AI agent and we'll define below request to check the schedule. And then we'll parse in, create this an expression. We'll parse in this request here. And then we can set like a simple system message. You're a helpful assistant tasked with, and we might actually just copy the identity right here. Tasked with retrieving, explaining scheduled events, and we'll copy that over. Retrieving and explaining, and we'll make this a bit more unpersonalized. Scheduled events in the calendar. When a caller asks about XYZ, we're going to say use the appropriate tools to retrieve the relevant event data and summarize it clearly. Cool. So we'll hit save on that one, and we'll want to connect a chat model, of course. So we could probably use something simple like OpenAI for Mini is fine. And the tool will search up Google Calendar. And this is going to be event, and we'll choose get many, selecting from my calendar, right? And I guess we'll return all or just define by the model. And then we'll have these defined also by the model. We'll go ahead and save that one. Okay. Now in our respond to webhook node, let's just run this really quickly to see what would have come up. You can see get many events here. I don't think there's anything in my calendar. So there's one event scheduled for today. There isn't. So we'll probably want to specify the time as well. The current date and time is always helpful to provide that context to an AI model, especially if we're using 4.1 Mini where the knowledge cutoff date isn't today. So let's rerun that, and that should return really nothing on our event or our calendar, or it'll just make up a response. There are no scheduled events. There we go. So now what we could do is respond with that first incoming item. Go ahead and hit save on that one. And now let's talk to our agent, and it should sort of relay that on our calendar. And perhaps, we'll create an event, maybe dinner with John. And let's ask what we have on tonight, and hopefully that picks that up. So let's go ahead and start that call.
Hello, Jonas. How can I assist you with your schedule today?
Hey, I'm pretty busy. What do I have on tonight?
Tonight, you have dinner with John from 7 to 8 in the evening. Would you like to know about any other plans?
That's all. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. That worked perfectly. Let's see what it sounds like if we have perhaps give it a specific date. So meeting with LiveKit. Okay, let's add that and let's call in. Check this.
Hello, Jonas. How can I assist you with your schedule today?
What do I have on for the rest of the week?
For the rest of the week, you have dinner with John tonight from 7 to 8 in the evening. On December 5th, there is a meeting with LiveKit from 1:15 to 7 in the evening. On December 7th, you have voice AI research and innovation from 10 in the morning to 12:30, followed by talk AI on web agents and graphical topics from 1 to 6 in the evening.
Okay, so it retrieved some information as well as the following week. That is fine. Now, the last thing to do here is how to get this set up on a number, which is relatively straightforward. So what you want to do, and we did this before, is purchase that number, but you'll actually have to create a dispatch rule. So if I go over to the number and select the one we had bought, we can go ahead and hit create dispatch rule over here. We can name this whatever we want. So my dispatch, and essentially what a dispatch rule is telling exactly where this number should assign the caller to, what room and with what agent. So we'll create the rule name, and the rule type we'll do direct, and the room name we'll just do pre-dash, and then we'll add our agent to this room, or we'll specify an agent dispatch. Now from memory, our agent's name we'll want to copy over, so that's at Hayden1FB. Just want to copy that over and make sure that's word for word right. And then we'll inbound routing is on our phone number. We'll hit create on that one. And there we have it. Our agent is now associated with this inbound phone number that we can go ahead and call into, no issues there. So a real quick one today, showcasing LiveKit's new web agent builder. And as you saw here today, we're able to connect it to external services. In our case, Google Calendar to retrieve event information and then port that on a number. Now, it's important to note here, what do you do after you had built out this basic agent, right? Well, a cool thing that we have here is our agent Python script. Now, this is essentially what we had built throughout going through each of those sections as a Python script. Now, we could take this and inject it into an agent's SDK project and go ahead and move this particular agent to something more production ready, perhaps incorporating some workflows, some life cycles, and so forth. But this new web agent builder gives you a solid starting ground on building, as we saw today, a good sounding MVP agent. And of course, the last thing to do today is deploy your agent. And what we can do is head up to the right-hand corner here and hit deploy. And this is going to build our agent, showing the logs of the deployment, as you can see here, going ahead and building that from a Docker image. And this will hang in pending until it's completed. There we go. Our agent is now deployed, where we can go ahead and call into that number that we created the dispatch rule on. And then we can see some overview stuff such as connection rate, platforms, connection type, as well as sessions, calls, and everything associated with agent observability. But I think we've covered enough today. Let me know in the comments if you would like some more tutorials surrounding LiveKit. Of course, I've got some in the past where we talk about SIP trunking and connecting numbers that way. It's been known that this new feature, phone numbers, is a bit temperamental. So SIP trunking is more of a reliable way to get numbers associated with the agents here. But that's besides the point. All right, everyone, that is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment below. If you're a serious builder looking to build and sell production-ready voice AI systems, I recommend checking out the link in the description. Otherwise, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with everything voice AI. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.